I think we're good. Okay, can you guys hear me okay in the back? All right, sorry. So Logan, who is our IT guy, he and his wife are having a baby today, so he couldn't be here. I don't know. Some people don't have a good excuse. Yeah. He's not really supportive of the program. So I was kind of panicked here because I'm not an IT person. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that happen. Well, I had to get help too. So you guys will be okay. I just hope that the people online can see this. So so I just wanted to share a couple things with you before we go over some of the highlights from last week. I have one thing that's not working is my slide advancer, so maybe I can just do it this way here. Figure out how that even works. I'll do it like this. Whoops. Wait a minute now. You guys can't see that. Okay, what is happening? See, I thought I had it. Oh, well, let me do it this way. Maybe it'll look a different way here. This is going to be tricky from the beginning. Uh-oh. Okay, resume switch. What? Marilyn can see, but I'm not able to advance the slides. Resume slideshow. Uh-oh. Okay, let me take this out. Let's try this again. Wow. This is not supposed to be tricky. Okay, let me stop. I'm going to stop. So Marilyn probably can't see this now. Let me try this one more time. Control Alt Delete. Okay. So yeah, you don't want to see me. Share screen. If I share this screen, I think I messed up. Let me try this again.
What are you trying to do?
Okay. You're in the show. That's good that I'm in the show. Okay. Oh boy, let's see. Let's see if this can let me. Can she, is she giving you any feedback now? See, that's not advancing. Wow. I hate for the people at home to not be able to see this. Share screen. Hey, Chris. It's not, my slides aren't advancing. So I don't, I went out of the studio and I'm going to go back in and share screen. And when I do share screen, I can see the screen 1 and screen 2. Screen 2 gives me my introductory slide, and screen 1 sort of gives me, I think, everything that's on the screensaver. So I'm not sure which one of the screens I'm supposed to share. Yeah. Yeah, that's projected. Okay, so let me do that. But then when I look at my screen, I just see me talking, and I don't see anything on my, there we go. So now I'm going to do, how do I do the full screen so I don't see all the other stuff here? And how do I advance the slides? Yeah, I just want to see the, because I can't, I'm not able to, yeah, I want to see the PowerPoint on my screen. Okay. All right, can you make that bigger? Okay, I guess that's okay, but I still can't, I'm not advancing the slides. So let me see. How do I advance? Okay, now, I can't advance any of the slides though. That's the thing that's got me confused. Yeah. He gave me a slide advancer, a handheld slide advancer with a laser pointer, but that I'm not getting that to work. I don't know why. I put it in the port where my mouse tab goes for my wireless mouse. I'm still not getting it to sync up. Business. I'm not going to do anything crazy here. Just make this work. Okay, good. All right. So I thought I'd start off with something that might make you laugh. So do your diddly squats. All right. So Thursday is Veterans Day. So I wanted to tell you some stories about veterans, and if I said any of this, I apologize, because I know we've talked a little bit before about my dad's war experience, but I don't think I told you this story. This story, I think, will give us an appreciation for Veterans Day. So this is a picture in boot camp of 3 18-year-old boys. My dad's the one on the right, and then you can see their names, Bob McTurius and Don Mahoney. This is a picture of Bob McTurius and his parents, and they were in Altoona, Florida. They were on leave just before they shipped overseas. So this is actually the last time Bob was with his parents. And then this is a picture of my dad and his mother about the same time period, just before he went away. This is so let me tell you, before I go into this story, let me tell you about what happened to Bob McTurius. They were fighting on the island of Okinawa, which was the last island of battle in World War II. All they had to do was take this island. They would be able to land planes on Okinawa that could take off and drop bombs on Japan, and easily make the trip back. And so once they secured the island, they were going to prepare for the invasion of Japan. So this was in May and June 1945, which is about the time that my dad and these three guys, or these two other guys, entered the war. So Bob Victorious was on the southern end of the island, and he was watching. There were two caves, and there were machine gun nests. The Japanese had machine gun nests in these caves, and they were cross-firing out on the battlefield as the medics were carrying the wounded off the field. And they were just wiping out American wounded and medics. And Bob got mad, so he loaded his pockets and hands up with grenades and charged up to one of the caves and knocked out the machine gun nest and got shot through the stomach. So the story was his guts were hanging out, and he put his hand over his guts. He crawled back about 200 yards, got more grenades, crawled back up, and wiped out the next nest. I don't know how many lives he saved, but the medics picked him up, and he asked them, "Can you put some sulfa on the wounds?" And they said, "No, we don't have any time. We got to get you on a ship." So he died 2 days later on the ship. Now, Don Mahoney, if anybody saw Hacksaw Ridge, that movie, Don Mahoney was close to Hacksaw Ridge in that battle, and he got shot in the chest, and he said he felt like he got the wind knocked out of him playing football. Just heard a thump, and he went down, and he could hear the air going out of his lungs, and he could feel this warm, wet stuff on his chest. And so he was bleeding, and his lungs were punctured, and a medic came out to assist him, and the medic got shot and fell right on top of him and was dead. So both of them appeared to be dead. The medic was dead, and Don was not dead, but he appeared dead. So they carried him off, and they were putting him to graves registration, where they were going to tag their toes and put him in a body bag and send him off to be buried. Somebody saw Don's toe moving, and they said he's still alive. So they actually saved Don. He lost about 70 pounds in the hospital. He lost a lung and a couple of ribs, and he actually lived. I'll show you another picture of him. He lived into his 80s. My dad actually ran into him in the hospital on Guam after the war, and he heard a voice, and he recognized the voice, but he couldn't recognize Don because he lost so much weight. So anyhow, Bob Victorious died in battle, and this picture was sent, the boys got this picture in boot camp and sent it to their mothers. So Mrs. Victorious here on the right gets this letter or gets this picture, and the next day she writes a letter to my dad. And I'll read you the letter in case you can't read it. This is July 1st, 1945. Dear Harry, just got the picture and letter from your mom, and so thankful for it. How happy we were to get it. But Harry boy, the next day, we got word our precious boy was dead. Said he died of his wounds received at Okinawa. If you can, would you please write us something about it? We are just hoping, if it has to be so, that you or his other buddy were close by. And will please write and tell us all about him, won't you? God bless our boys. From Bob's mom, Mrs. R.M. Victorious. My dad has a copy of this letter, or this is the original letter. And then this is a picture in Bob's house with Mrs. Victorious, where she received the Medal of Honor, or the Purple Heart, for her son. This is a picture of my dad and Don Mahoney. They're sold in that picture. So Don Mahoney's the guy in the middle on the left. This was 2003. Down in Altoona, Florida, they made a National Historic Monument out of Bob's homestead where he grew up. And they erected this monument, and they had a dedicatory service. And the guy in the middle is is Bob Victorious's brother, Basil. He was the younger brother that survived. This is a picture of my dad at the monument, and then we were there 3 years ago in Florida. We went to the house, and then this is the cemetery where Bob is buried. I was trying to show you a picture of the house because the house is now a national monument, and I got a picture of my dad walking in the house that kind of the neat thing about this was after the war, my dad took a bus down to Florida and spent a week with his parents, and they showed him around, and he talked to them about their son. This is a picture, this was actually, I took this picture, it was in Don's bedroom, which is where my dad slept, you know, like 70 years ago or whatever that was. So it was a pretty moving experience to be there and know the background of this. Then I have this picture. This is the 6th Marine Division Cemetery on Okinawa, and this is my dad's handwriting here. It says, this is the rear of the cemetery. You can see almost how wide it was. It was more than 3 times as long. Boys here I knew were, and then he listed the names of some of the guys that he knew that were buried there. So my dad wrote a poem a couple years ago that I wanted to share with you about this picture and this experience. We were all so young in that battle long ago, on the island in the sea against a fearless foe. The sky was red with tracers when the kamikazes flew. Bombs and shells dropped around us from somewhere in the blue. Our friends were killed and wounded beside us day by day, but the corpsmen saved so many as we fought along our way. And when the battle ended, we stood to stretch our backs. We looked so tired and haggard as we emptied out our packs. We ate what little food was left of rations, K's, and C's, then climbed a little nearby hill to gaze out at the seas. We gathered all the gear we had and headed back to port, but the Navy lost so many ships, our wait would not be short. One division cemetery came within our view. We stopped to see if buried there were any that we knew. We walked along white crosses lined up in perfect rows and read the names of many. With tears our eyes did close. Here's Daly, and here's Heller, and there's Charlie Lee, McDermott, Hall, and Miller, and a guy we just called Ski. Gundell and Boone and Cannon, their names still ring a bell, but time will dim their faces and the places where they fell. We did not find my buddy Bob, his name was not there found. A letter from his mom confirmed his place in hallowed ground. How could I forget Marines whose courage there did soar, who lost their lives in fighting for our country and our corps? My flag has stars with names of those brave and noble men. It waves both night and day for wives that might have been. Now Don and John and Ken and Ben and all back home again, have we lived a life of honor that their gift was not in vain. And now our time grows shorter and our ranks are getting thin. We pray our friends who guard the streets of heaven will let us in. This brotherhood is special, but for others hard to see, but not for those who lived it in wars like you and me. And when our time on earth is up and we join our friends above, we know our country will be safe for all the ones we love. For other sons will take our place in many battle scenes in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and the United States Marines. That gets me every time. Then my dad, he wrote another poem, found a picture. When they invaded Okinawa, there was no, they just walked on the island. They thought it could be like Normandy. There was no Japanese there. And they thought, where are they? They're not even on the island. Well, they were entrenched in caves that they had prepared for 4 years. And there was a middle section of the island where they knew that the Americans were going to have to come. And so they called it a killing field. It was called Sugarloaf Hill. And so the Japanese emperor, the general of the island of that theater, part of the theater, he had every square meter of that field he had designated either a mortar shell, a rifle, or a bomb to go off. Each Japanese was to protect 1 square meter, and my dad There was seven groups of Marines, 7 companies, I think about 90 guys. They go up, and they couldn't see the enemy, and they'd get shot in the back, and 7 would come back out of the 90, and this repeated 6 times. And my dad was 400 yards away, and he was watching this happen. And he said he saw a Japanese soldier run from rock to rock when the machine gun fire stopped. This guy was an ammo carrier, and he would carry ammo to wherever that nest was. So he watched him, and he was with his foxhole buddy, and he took a shot from 400 yards away. Before the guy even left the rock, he was watching his pattern, and he hadn't even left the rock yet, but he timed it up like he was trained and was able to drop this guy and stop the machine gun fire, and they were able to take the hill. And but there were bodies everywhere. I mean, it was the bloodiest battle of the whole Pacific theater. So it was pretty terrible. And when he got on the ship to go invade the island, not knowing they weren't going to have resistance, that night the kamikazes were everywhere. When he said the kamikazes flew, he said he just wanted to get off the ship and dig a foxhole and get away from that because they were sinking a lot of ships. This is the last one I want to show you here. This goes with another poem that he wrote. It's called The Final Inspection. They stood before their Maker, and thus it came to pass. They hoped their shoes were shining just as brightly as their brass. Step forward now, Marines, he said. How shall I deal with you? Have you kept all my commandments? To your duty, were you true? We didn't like the things we did, but had to make a choice. For those of us who carried guns, we tried to hear your voice. We seldom had a place to sleep or had a quiet meal. We were bound to do our duty, no matter how we feel. We've had to fight on Sundays, and at times our talk was rough. Sometimes our acts were violent because wars are always tough. We've never missed a cry for help. At times we've shed some tears. We protected little children and tried to calm their fears. We know we don't deserve a place among your faithful here. Their many years of service show how they were more sincere. So if you have a place for us, it need not be so grand. We never expected so very much. If not, we'll understand. A silence fell around the throne, where saints have often trod, as all Marines wait quietly for the judgment of their God. Enter now, Marines, he said. You have borne your burdens well. Guard peacefully on these golden streets. You served your time in hell. So I just hope that I know most of you appreciate our veterans and what they do, but this generation especially, they're almost gone. And I just think we need to, I just wanted to share that with you. I know it's got nothing to do with Fit for Life, but, pardon?
Those are really good. Have they been published?
Yeah, he's actually he's been interviewed several times on radio, and if you want, I can share some of those 10-minute interviews where he tells some of these stories on the Facebook Live page. But yeah, I'm just really thankful for those guys. Okay, so this was about flexibility fitness. And I'm going to skip this. I didn't take anything out, I don't think, because I was short on time. If you watch the video, you know, the animals teach us that we need to do this. When was the last time you got out of bed and even did a toe touch, let alone, a chipmunk stretch? You know? But they all do that. Okay. So we've talked at the very beginning about these 3 universal laws of nature that also apply to flexibility. Balance and harmony, which is the idea of if one muscle contracts, the other has to relax. Now this is an easy one. You're probably all pretty good with this. You can bend your arm, you can contract your bicep and relax your tricep. What I'm guessing most of you have problems with is the hip flexor muscle, being able to go way back with a hip flexor. That requires flexibility here, and then being able to push forward requires strength in the gluteal muscles. And Dr. Jakubowski, who you're going to hear from next week, or 2 weeks, when we talk about back pain, we have a Tuesday morning radio show on WBTC. It's at 8:30. We talked about this today, common hip and knee problems. Almost everybody is too tight here because we sit all day, and this muscle just is tight. And if you're in a car for a long time, and you get out of the car and you stand up like this, and I straighten my back up because I can't walk like that. You're trying to overcome this, and this has to be flexible. And if you sit all day, this gets tight and the glutes or the butt muscles get weak. So the only thing that allows you to overcome this tightness are these muscles right here. So you're activating those to stand up straight so you don't look like an old person. And then these muscles get tight and they get sore and they get tired. So the thing we have to do is stretch these muscles and tighten gluteal muscles. And I'll show you a couple of more pictures on that, but that's agonistic and antagonistic muscles. Then we talked about this order and sequence of movement of the muscle groups. So I've been going to the gym and lifting weights or being trained by a bodybuilder, and he has me doing squats. One of the squats, actually it's a deadlift. You come down like this and you go down, and then you contract your hamstrings to here, and from here you contract your gluteal muscles. And then I was doing squats. The first couple of times I was doing it, he pushed right here. He goes, "You're not even using your glutes." I'm like, "Really? I thought I was using those." He said, "No, because I haven't trained them." So I have to physically really think about tightening up those muscles. And if you sit like most of us do, those muscles are going to be weak. And that's going to pull you forward, stick your butt out, and put a lot of pressure on your low back. So sometimes it's not just enough to think you're doing it right. You got to have somebody telling you you're doing it right. Okay, and then the third law of nature is independence and interdependence. Okay, so all these muscles have to work together. And your nerves and muscles and bones can work independently. We can grow each of those cells in a petri dish, but they won't do anything. When you put them together, you connect the nerves and the muscles and the bones, then you can make the body move. That's interdependence. Okay, and here's another example again of these actions here. So this is what I was telling you. The quads, the hamstring, the hip flexors are really tight. The hamstrings tend to be tight as well, and then this is also the muscle groups I was showing you. This is a picture of this order and sequence we talked about. This is the kinetic chain of movement. So I think I probably mentioned this on the video before, but many years ago, 20 years ago, Joe Montana had hurt his elbow, and he was trying to get help with his elbow, and none of the trainers in San Francisco could help him. So he went to Dr. Kubler in Kentucky, and Dr. Kubler said, "Okay, take your shirt off. I need to look at your back." And it actually made Joe Montana mad. He's like, "I spent a lot of money for you to fix my elbow, not my back. There's nothing wrong with my back." And he actually said, "Yes, there is. The muscles that hold your shoulder blade on the rib cage are weak. We have to strengthen those, because if we don't strengthen those, all the forces you generate when you throw are going to go through the weakest link, which is your elbow." So that's what happened to happen. So if you want to know how important this is, try to throw a ball taking one of these chains out of the link. So throw a ball with a bad knee that hurts to move. Throw a ball with a blister on your toe. Throw a ball with a shoulder problem or a wrist problem or an elbow problem, and you'll see that it impairs it. Throw a ball sitting from a chair where you're not using your legs, your knees, your hips, your feet, and you'll see that it impairs it. So this is not about throwing a baseball. This is about any kind of movement. If you want to move normally, all of these joints have to be evenly balanced, they have to be strong, and they have to be flexible. And what happens when you get older is they're not strong and they're not flexible. So this is a pretty dramatic looking picture here. Some of you remember Randy Johnson. So if you guys take your arm up and cock it back, how far back can you get it? This is my throwing arm. This is my non-throwing arm. It doesn't go back near as far, right? So, but it doesn't go anything like that. And he obviously was known for his fastball because he could generate, first of all, he's really tall, could generate a ton of torque. He gets his arm almost parallel with the ground, and as it comes forward, using his legs and that entire kinetic chain, you can see why he was able to throw the ball so fast. And this is just for those of you that like the golf. It's the same thing. If you've got a problem with one joint, it will affect your swing or how well you hit the ball. Okay, so why do we lose our flexibility? And the answer is we violate one of those three principles we talked about. So the muscles or joints that are imbalanced by inactivity or disuse, or poor balance or imbalanced posture, or incorrect sequencing of this kinetic chain. So when I'm doing my squats and I'm not really activating my glute muscles, I'm using my quad muscles and my low back muscles more than I should. And then I can hurt my back because I'm not using those big glute muscles. And then we have uncorrected biochemical or biomechanical defects. So you have an old injury, you have a frozen shoulder, and it never really gets back to the normal range of motion. And it's just really close. It doesn't take much for it to flare up again. It's called this tissue tolerance. If you stress that muscle over and over again, after a while, just one little simple overuse injury, it's going to tighten all up and form scar tissue. And if you don't release that scar tissue, the motion won't be restored, and it'll start to throw balance off in other places, and you'll have other problems. And then this often happens because we haven't rehabilitated our previous injuries. And then oxidation of connective tissue proteins that become stiffer. That's what we don't want. We don't want our ligaments and our tendons become stiff. We want them to stay loose. And if you have oxidative stress because you're eating the wrong foods or because you're smoking, you're going to be stiffer. And if you guys follow Tom Brady, does anybody know how old he is now? 47, 48? Still playing football? I mean, he wants to play till he's 50. Most quarterbacks are done in their late 30s, and he's still playing. He doesn't lift weights. He stretches, and he has a massage therapist / chiropractor work on him every day for about an hour and a half. And it's painful because he developed scar tissue, and he's breaking the scar tissue up. I was having some knee pain the other night. Woke up with this knee pain. I'm like, oh man, I hope I didn't tear a meniscus in my knee because I don't know why I was hurting. I went to Dr. Jakubowski, and I realized my calf muscle was really tightening up from all the things I was doing on the right side. So he did his therapy, which we'll explain to you in a couple weeks. Today I had a massage therapist work on it. It was very painful, but it feels a lot better now. So that scar tissue was forming, and without releasing that, it was going to stay very vulnerable to causing a lot of problems. So we don't want to stress our joints and not get it corrected. Okay, so these are the things that can cause this connective tissue proteins to become stiffer. Here's a real good example of something that we can do to cause muscle tension, bursitis in our shoulder, or chronic tension headaches. And you can see this guy on the left here. It doesn't look like it's bad posture, but it's not good posture because he's sitting in that position too long. He's leaning his head forward. So the image on the left is the perfect alignment of the spine. That's when he starts out with perfect posture. And as his eyes fatigue and he sits there, he slouches forward. And now instead of the pressure of gravity, the 12 pounds of pressure in his head, now the head's forward, it's 32 pounds of pressure pushing on the back of his neck. And those muscles are going to get tight and get sore. And then further, it's 42 pounds of pressure. And so this is, if you got tension headache, this would be the first thing I'd worry about, is that your posture doing this to you. So, unfortunately, if you have this posture long enough, you'll learn in a couple of weeks when we talk about back pain that the bones will start to fuse there and you're stuck, and you can't change that. So I always try to remember when I sit in the car to sit up straight and put my head back and put it on the headrest just to remind me that I shouldn't be leaning forward. You can also just test yourself by standing against the wall. Put your heels against the wall, your butt and your shoulders, and just see where your head falls. I mean, this is pretty decent posture. It doesn't have to be like this, but 2 inches away is pretty good. But when you're doing this, you're going to have shoulder problems, neck problems, tension headache, and back problems. Okay, and so this is we call this the two different cross syndromes that happen with poor posture. One is in the neck, and it looks complicated, but really it's pretty simple. You've got, I don't know if this is going to work or not here. Yeah, okay. So when your head is forward like this, the muscles in the front get very weak, and the muscles in the back, the upper trap, they get tight, and that's when those muscles tighten up where they insert in your skull, that can cause the tension migraines. And then when your head is forward, your shoulders tend to roll forward and your pectoral muscles get really tight, and that keeps you in that position. So this is really poor posture. There's a really simple way to find out if you've got this. If you lay flat and then you just raise your head off the floor just by 2 inches and hold it there. If this muscle is weak and you're trying to hold your head off the floor by 2 inches, it'll start to shake. Your head will do this, and you'll know. Head forward too much. So when I feel this tension from sitting and typing all day at the desk, I'll go back in my office and lay on one of those big Swiss balls and just do the opposite. That feels really good to stretch that, okay? But do that test at home. It's a really simple thing to do, and you'll be surprised at how much your head shakes. Okay, with the lower cross, these are the back muscles and the core muscles. So if your abdominal muscles are weak because you're sitting and not exercising, and your gluteal muscles are weak, then you compensate by tightening up the hip flexor muscles here and the lower back muscles here. So this is what happens if you sit too long. And sometimes you'll see me kind of squat down like this or stretch like this. It's because when I stand a long time, these muscles get really tight. But there's an exercise that I do that really helps this. So if I just take a big step forward and I lunge down like this, now if I lean like that, I'm not stretching my hip flexors as much as if I go like that. And that really stretches them. And I just go up and down, or I'll do it as a walk. If I do enough of those and my gluteal muscles are sore, my back feels so much better because it takes my back posture from this position to that position, and it feels a lot better. If I sit on an airplane all day and I get up, my back is killing me, which you wouldn't think sitting will hurt your back, but it does. Okay, so this is kind of the same thing, just showing you a different image. And this is showing you what happens when you have poor posture because your abdominal muscles are weak, your gluteal muscles are weak, these muscles are tight, and this muscle is tight. It basically makes you stand like this. And you've got a deeper curve right here, and it makes your back really sore. So you want to rotate the pelvis from this position to this position like that, and then there's no strain on the back. And how do you do that? You have to have flexibility here and strengthen the gluteal muscles. You have to have flexibility here and strengthen the abdominal muscles. Okay, that just shows you some of the muscle groups. This is the hip flexor muscle right here. So it actually attaches along your spine, and then on your thigh muscle up here, its job is to do that. Okay, so how will becoming more flexible benefit you? It will prevent injuries. It counters the shortening that occurs when your muscles are repeatedly used, like repetitive exercise, and it keeps the muscles elastic. It allows your joints to be healthier, and it helps you in everyday movements. Some of you don't have a goal to do athletic kind of movements, but you all want to move without pain. You all want to be able to climb a flight of steps or take a walk without something flaring up and hurting. It's strange to me that I can play basketball for 2 hours and my back doesn't hurt. But if I walk 2 miles, my back is really sore. It's because these hip flexors are pulling me this way, and I'm not going to walk like this. I'm going to walk like that, and these muscles get really tight. Okay, so how do you become more flexible? Dr. Jacobowski, he's going to be on the talk on back pain. I think he'll be a good reference for you because he's a chiropractor most chiropractors are really well in tune with body mechanics. They can look at you and say, this is tight, this is weak. I see that you're off balance here, one leg appears longer, and we need to stretch this or fix this. So somebody, or a physical therapist who can really look at your body mechanics, you need to start off with a good, honest evaluation of your posture to make sure everything's moving correctly. And then you want to try to restore that motion by stretching certain muscles and strengthening certain muscles. So at one point I thought, okay, so my hip flexor's tight and my glutes are weak. Well, I went to the gym and I just said, I'm going to start doing things that will help my hips. So I got on one of those machines where you sit and you push out like that. And the next day my back was killing me because I didn't understand the mechanics of that muscle group. So you just have to be careful. If you do something that hurts, that's telling you you're doing something that's wrong. So you need somebody to help you with the mechanical issues that you're having. And it requires that you make a commitment to stretch. And you'll be surprised how quickly you can increase your flexibility. So I haven't done this for a long time. And I've been pretty tight lately. So if I reach down here like this, and I just hold that position for 10 seconds, I can feel the stretch in my low back and my hamstrings. Then I can reach further. Then I can reach further. And within a couple of days, I can get my palms on the floor. All of you have that capability. But that's just one muscle group. All the other muscle groups also need to be stretched. Okay, so the principles are, if your muscles are tight, they're weak. Your body's saying, you're not very strong here, and we got to tighten up, because if you try to do something that's overly aggressive, you might tear us, and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to protect ourselves from a tear. So tight muscles are generally weak. And flexibility is a sign of muscle strength, not weakness. Okay, so the question is, can you touch your toes? Some of you, it's barely to your knees, and you're going to have to really work on it to get there. But you'll be surprised how much improvement you can make in just a couple days. Okay, so when your joints are unstable, most of the time it's because the muscles are weak and inflexible. Then you guys, if you watch the video, you saw Coach Hartzell talk, right? I was going to have him come tonight, but it was too late to get him here. But he's 81 years old now, and he still does this. In fact, he'll go into the store and he'll say to somebody, how much would you give me if I did the splits right now? And sometimes he'll get a discount on a purchase, $5 off if you can see an old man do the splits, and he drops down into these. So if you saw the video, you saw how flexible he was, and you heard him say when he played college football, he couldn't get his hands past his knees, so he was really stiff. Okay, so the other thing we talked about in the video was how to help with arthritis pain. So does everybody understand what arthritis is and why you get it? It's inflammation. So why do you have inflammation? Things you eat and drink, and I'm glad you got that, because that's important. But it's chronic trauma. It's misuse. Or you got a mechanical defect and you haven't corrected it, so the bones are rubbing incorrectly and they start to break down, and they tend to just fuse together. So that's the reason you got arthritis problems. So it's inflammation. So how do you get rid of inflammation in a joint? I got hit by a basketball a week ago, just like that, and my thumb was really sore here. It was pretty swollen. So I just did what Coach Hartzell taught. Inflammation is good if it's acute. So if you have injury, the inflammatory process helps it to heal. But if it's chronically inflamed and chronically swollen, it's going to cause prolonged pain. You're not going to get that range of motion, and it's just going to be a problem. So what I did with this joint right here is I took a rubber band and I wrapped it around that joint as tight as I could stand it for about 30 seconds. I mean, it was painful because it was already sore and swollen. Then I released it. When I wrapped that joint, I was squeezing the inflammation out of the joint. When I released the rubber band, blood went rushing in. And one thing you'll learn in a couple of weeks is that blood flow is what heals. If you have good blood flow, you're going to heal fast. And that helps that. So 3 or 4 wraps like that, and my pain was so much better. So you can do that on any joint that hurts. That's one thing that he talks about. Okay, so it's caused by a chemical or a mechanical stress. So chemical is food, and mechanical are injuries. Okay, so again, inflammation is due to repeated misuse of the joint. And we can make it worse. And if you guys want to experiment with this, you like, oh, I think I have arthritis. I can't remember where it is. Then try eating a lot of sugar in one day. I guarantee you'll find the joints. Or try to drink a lot of soda. I can do it if I have just one Diet Coke. I can feel the inflammation in my joints, in my knees, and my other joints. So inactivity reduces blood flow and gets rid of the, it causes you to continue to be swollen. So I think on the video, he showed us that if you have a sprained ankle, and the ankle swells up and it hurts, what you don't want to do, first thing you want to make sure you don't have a fracture if it's bad. So get an x-ray. If there's no fracture, then don't let them put you in a boot. Don't let them put you in a splint where you can't move that joint. That will delay the healing, that will prolong the swelling and the pain. And 4 days later, you go see the family doctor, your ankle is going to hurt more and be stiffer and more swollen than it was before. You don't heal by immobilizing things if it's not broken. You move it. So I've done this every time somebody's come in my office on crutches with a sprained ankle. They leave in 15 minutes without the crutches and without pain. Maybe a 1 out of 10 pain, 2 out of 10 at the most. All I'm doing is wrapping the joint, and then I'm putting traction on the joint and having them move. And what that does is it pushes the inflammation out of the joint, and it gets blood in, and the pain goes away. The injury, the torn ligaments and tendons and muscles, they're still torn. They still require time to heal. But if you can get rid of the pain, you can start walking. And I'll tell you something else, that if you sprain an ankle and you try to stand on that foot a couple days later, you won't be able to hold your balance. Your balance will be shot because you have these little sensory proprioceptive sensors in the bottom of your feet that senses where you're moving and where your weight's going. And if you don't use that, you'll lose it quick. So anybody that's had a foot surgery or has worn one of these casts, their balance is terrible. So I tell them, you got a sprained ankle, once I get you out of pain, I want you to stand on your foot like this. And they'll be falling all over the place. And the best thing they can do is to challenge their balance to get that back. Because without that, they're very vulnerable, without good balance, to roll it right again and have the same problem. Okay, so healing arthritic joints. So most of you have some arthritis pain. So we want to first try to get the normal range of motion. See a physical therapist, chiropractor, or massage therapist to help you. I was having Achilles tendonitis. It was really starting to bother me. Today, after the massage on my calf muscle, it's gone. That tension in my calf muscle was like this, putting more tension on the Achilles tendon down on my heel. Now that that's been loosened, there's no more tension on the Achilles tendon, and it's good. But it's because I saw the right person. So we want to try to improve our posture. We want to try to reduce the oxidative stress by the things we've been talking about. Glucosamine chondroitin can be helpful. I would say try it for a month. It's 1,500 milligrams for a month. And if that doesn't make a difference, then it's probably not going to help you. I would say work on the first and second. Get rid of the foods that are inflammatory and the other things that are inflammatory, and see if that helps you, because that usually makes a big difference. So anything that increases or enhances blood flow will help you heal. I tell people, if I make a 1-inch incision in your face and put stitches in, the stitches come out in 5 days. If I make the same incision, same length and depth in your back, stitches stay in for almost 10 to 14 days. Do you know why that is? A lot of blood flow to the face, not much to the back. So blood flow helps you heal faster. That's why a surgeon is not thrilled to work on a smoker or a diabetic, because their blood flow is impaired. So just try to maintain your blood flow by activity. Okay. And then another great place for some people are they have so much pain. If you can get in a swimming pool, a warm swimming pool, and just walk around and move those joints without gravity interfering and weighing on you, it can really be a big relief. I strongly recommend that if you've got that kind of pain. And then there are some times where stem cell joint injections can be really helpful, especially if you're in your 40s, 50s, early 60s, and you've got a bad knee, a bad hip, or something. We can inject stem cells, which are premature cells. They're cells that don't know what they want to be when they grow up. And when you put them near other cells, they say, oh, we must be cartilage cells, so we're going to become a cartilage cell. And they help restore cartilage in those joints where it's wearing thin. There's a Dr. Scarpone in Steubenville that does that. He's one of the pioneers in this. Okay, so these are the things we talked about. The assignments. Why do you think I want you to stop diet soft drinks now? They're inflammatory, right? They're very acidic, very oxidizing. And if you get away from it and you go back to it and you got some arthritis, you'll know. Yeah, I had 16 ounces of Diet Coke today, and I can feel it now in my knees or one of my joints. I want you to, if you're, hopefully most people know if they're drinking too much alcohol. Don't drink too much alcohol. And if you're smoking, you just need to get away from it. If you're using tobacco. And the best way is just cold turkey. But I'm not telling you to stop tobacco because you're working so hard on other things. I'm saying you tackle that when you're ready. Okay, but I am asking you to stretch. Just start. And if you saw those, the bands that Coach Hartzell had, there's a lot of great stretches. I had I don't know if I told you this story in the video or not, but I was at the Philly Credit Union one morning, Saturday morning, pulled up, and my wife ran in, and I'm sitting in the car, and next to me pulls up a couple, a boy and his mom, and I knew them both. The boy was a patient, and he's got a sling on. And I said, what happened? He goes, oh, I dislocated my shoulder in a basketball game last night. And the coach was a young guy, and he freaked out. And he said, yeah, I just pulled it back in place myself, but now I have to see a trainer for this. So I said, okay, when you're done seeing the trainer, he was going from the bank to the trainer's gym. I said, come and see me. Here's my address. Come to my house. So he comes an hour later to my house in a sling. I said, what did the trainer say? He said, I have to wear the sling for a month, and then I can start rehab. I said, okay, take the sling off. Now move your arm. And he's like, oh, it hurts, it hurts. So I started him down here with the bands. He grabs the band, and he's pulling like this as it pulls him down. And then we slowly raise it, and then I start to bring it back like this. And an hour later, he's like, wow, it feels really good. This was a Saturday. I said, okay, I want you to do this at home, and then I want you to try some free throws in your driveway and come back on Monday. Come back and see me. So Monday he comes back with his dad, and we get the big, thick bands, and I'm cranking on his arm like this in every direction. He's like, I feel great. Can I play? I have a game Tuesday. Can I play? And I said, I'll clear you, but your coach was the one that was almost wet his pants when you did this, so I don't know how he's going to feel. So he called me Wednesday. He said, I just want to let you know that Coach put me in the middle of the first quarter, and I played till the beginning of the fourth quarter, and I scored 31 points. So I said, so now remember, the ligaments are still injured. You still got to rehab that. You got to strengthen the shoulder. But to get rid of the pain, that's what he was looking for. So I just can't emphasize the importance of staying flexible and moving those joints. And I wasn't having him do anything that was painful. When I was doing this, I said, are you okay? Yeah, it doesn't hurt. So we started out with things that didn't hurt. And then as he got more comfortable with it, I could challenge him in other ways, and he was fine. So we're opening up the joint space with that. I've had women in their 70s with arthritic knees, and I say, put your foot up on the chair, and then bend your knee a little bit. I'm going to grab your ankle, straighten your leg, and as I straighten your leg, I'm going to pull on your ankle, and I want you to try to just make gentle bends with your knee as you do this. In 5 minutes, the knee pain is gone. It's gone for like a week and a half. So what's that doing? It's opening up the joint. With the movement, we're getting inflammation out, and we're getting blood flow in, and it feels better. So there's a lot that you can do when you've got those arthritic joints before you have to start thinking you need injections or replacements. So this is what we're going to talk about next week, cardiovascular fitness. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to ask any of you to become runners because you don't have to be runners. But I think what we're going to talk about next week will really help you to understand how to really increase your metabolism. So your resting metabolism so you can really burn fat well. So does anybody have any questions or comments from this last week? Any questions on flexibility or anything else? Yes?
I have neuropathy in my feet,
In your knees?
my feet.
Oh, your feet, okay.
And what can I do about that? Because my balance is terrible because of that.
Yeah. So neuropathy means a disease of the nerves. That's all it means. Nobody knows what causes that. We just give it a name and you say, yeah, that's okay, but like what causes it? We don't know. We don't know if it's, sometimes diabetes can cause it, but a lot of people have neuropathy. It's probably from some kind of a toxin that we haven't identified. An organic acid, a heavy metal, something else, and we just haven't identified what it is. So I would say in your case, I would just force yourself to challenge your balance. And when your balance is bad, just try standing next to the kitchen sink and hold on to it and then lift a foot off the floor, take one hand away and then gently take the other hand away and you'll feel that foot's wiggling and wiggling and you don't, that maybe this is all you can do. But that will help that balance improve because that's the main balance organ you have is the pressure receptors in your feet.
Well, I had spinal stenosis.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then, I had it quite a while before I had surgery and this, nerve that goes down the leg.
Yes, the sciatic nerve?
Yes, the
Mhm.
sciatic.
Yeah.
nerve, I think was damaged from that.
Right, right.
And that may have caused it. I got it after.
Yeah, you could have nerve damage from that nerve being inflamed, yeah. But you can still work on balance exercises and strength exercises. And for you, with the spinal stenosis, you want to do squats, just up and down in a chair. I mean, if nothing else, just up and down, because with spinal stenosis, it gets hard to stand for a long time, so you want to sit, but you don't want to lose your strength. So just a lot of up and down from a chair is
I
good.
had surgery.
Oh, good, good. That's, you're fortunate, because they don't always do that.
I was all bent over
Yeah.
before I had the surgery.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
Do the B complexes help the neuropathy?
Sometimes they do. Did it help you? Yeah, yeah.
What did she do?
B complex.
Oh,
The B vitamins are especially important with the myelin sheath of the insulation that goes over the nerves. B12 is especially important. Most people are okay with B12, but folic acid, almost everybody's kind of on the low end. So a B complex gives you all of those. I think that's probably one of the best things you can take for neuropathy. Yes?
What do you think of KT tape?
Dr. Jacob Allison uses it. I think it's good. Do you guys know what KT tape is? You see athletes wearing it? It helps to, somehow it helps to support those muscles that are weak and not functioning and give them a little bit more power, and it helps the alignment in the joint. You'll see them in the shoulders and the back and other places. So I think it's helpful. I've used it.
I use it, I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it helped increase blood flow too.
I think that's what they say. I don't know how it does that, but that's what I've heard. Yeah.
You're ripping off.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, one of your people in your classroom who does this online, and watches online, is not here tonight. I asked her how she did with the 24-hour fast. She said it went well until hour 22, headache. Hour 23, felt very cold. She stopped during hour 24. Took herself out for a salad, a few ounces of grilled salmon, and a few sips of decaf, mostly to get her warmed up. And she said apparently this was exactly the wrong way to come off a 24-hour fast. For the rest of the evening and night, she had a storm of inflammation and pain. Coincidence? Question mark. Still having problem with sharp, intense pain when she breathes too deeply. Now I have to back this up and say she has some sort of a lung disease disorder that's never going to go away.
Mhm.
But what should she have done? Stopped at 22 hours and try not to do
Yeah, that's
more?
a good question. So most people would say what's happening there is when you're, after about 12 hours, you've used up all the sugar stores in your liver and your muscles. So now what you're burning is fat. So she started to burn fat, right? She's burning more fat as she gets into hour 18, 19. And what happens, where does your body store the bad things that it doesn't like? In your fat. So some of those toxins can get released, and they call that like the keto flu. So they're inflammatory, and I would bet that's probably what happened. So there's two ways to look at that. One is say, okay, you know, what was that, like how many hours did she feel? 22 hours is when she felt bad? Then maybe she goes with a 20-hour fast and not do that. And other people will say, I'm just going to do that for 2 or 3 days and feel terrible until all that's out of me, and then they start really feeling good.
Okay, how about what she ate afterward, is that something that?
I don't think there's
thought
anything
was
wrong
a
with that.
healthy
Yeah.
option.
I mean, if she could take ibuprofen, I might have said take 2 or 3 ibuprofen with food to help with some of the aches and pains.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that's a good question. Anything else? All right. Yes.
Just a testimony, I guess. I've had hip problems for quite a while, and I've just been so incapacitated, I couldn't hardly walk sometimes, but I started doing the stretching exercises, just those stretching exercises, and I went to Tuscarora Park yesterday, and I was able to walk all of those steps.
What were the stretching exercises you did?
The ones that, the neck.
Oh, okay.
Laying down.
Yeah.
Just those first ones.
Yeah.
It just, and I've been stretching more this week then, and then I just started doing those that they showed.
Yeah.
But I was like, yahoo!
Yeah, that's great. It's surprising. Sometimes you're really close. You're really close to feeling good, you don't know it. And sometimes you're close to really something disastrous happening because you're too tight and you're not recognizing it. So that's why I say there's always hope. You just never know. You just got to do things and learn from it and talk to the right people. Deb?
Yeah, there's an online question here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can B complex cause constipation, or is it the change in my diet? I'm eating mostly veggies, fish, chicken. I'm already drinking 70 to 80 ounces of water. I didn't think B complex caused.
No, B complex won't cause it. There might be some other supplement that may be doing something. With calcium might do it, but not B complex. That won't cause constipation. Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for coming.